You on audio or video with Reno? Oh, both. Probably streaming the video, yeah. But we are definitely with Reno too, right? Okay. Can you hear us in Reno?
Yes, we can, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you. Okay, we'll go ahead and call to order the meeting of the Nevada Board of Wildlife Commissioners for Friday, March 15th of 2019. Commissioner McNinch, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Brandy, would you mind calling the roll, please?
Chairman Johnston.
Here.
Vice Chairman Valentine.
Here.
Commissioner Allenberg.
Here.
Commissioner Barnes.
Here.
Commissioner Cavilla. Commissioner East. Commissioner Hubbs. Commissioner McNinch.
Here.
Commissioner Keel.
Just didn't know if we were, I was counting, wasn't sure if we were missing one or two. Okay. Would the county advisory boards in attendance please announce your presence? And do we have any cabs in attendance in Reno?
Carson. Steve Robinson, Washoe.
Who's there from Carson? I didn't catch it.
Gene Green. Eddie.
Thank you.
Steve Robinson, Washoe.
Great. Thank you. Go ahead and move on to agenda item number 2, approval of the agenda. Chairman Johnston, for possible action, the commission will review the agenda, may take action to approve the agenda. The commission may remove items from the agenda, continue items for consideration, or take items out of order. One announcement in this regard, it's my understanding that the Clark County Board of Commissioners, County Commissioners, is having a meeting today. They need this room. Obviously, it's their chambers and we're their guest. They're going to need the room, I think, at 12:45, or we need to break at 12:45. They'll need the room to about 2:15 or 2:30. So at that point in time, wherever we are, we'll look at the agenda, but we may have to break a little bit earlier than 12:45, just depending upon where we're at. And then we'll ask everybody to be back here at 2:15 or 2:30, depending upon that break time. So they can use their meeting room. Deputy Director Rob.
Jack Rob, for the record, there's a chance that they may not be done at 2:30 even, depending on how their agenda goes. So just remember, when you do come back, be respectful. There could be a meeting going on. Just don't barge in the doors talking and everything. Just be respectful. But we are their guests and we appreciate them letting us be here.
Any comments or further discussion on the agenda? Seeing none, this is an action item. Any public comment in Reno on agenda item number 2, approval of the agenda?
No comment in Reno.
Any public comment here in Las Vegas on the agenda? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the commission.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner McNinch, seconded by Commissioner Barnes, to approve the agenda as presented. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 8-0 with Commissioner Hubbs absent. Move on to agenda item number 3, member items, announcements, and correspondence. Chairman Johnston, information. Commissioners may present emergent items. No action may be taken by the commission. Any item requiring commission action may be scheduled on a future commission agenda. The commission will review and may discuss correspondence sent or received by the commission since the last regular meeting and may provide copies for the exhibit file. Commissioners may provide hard copies of their correspondence for the written record. Correspondence sent or received by Secretary Wosley may also be discussed. Any member items from the commission? I received some correspondence regarding the duck season, but I'll just wait until tomorrow for that. And I did receive, and I need to check with Secretary Wosley, I received an email regarding case length, and I don't know if the department received that. If you didn't, I will forward it on to you. It was, I don't recall the gentleman's name. Yeah, and it was regarding cartridge length, and I believe that was a regulation that was adopted last year or 2 years ago, and it kind of came out of the blue, and he noted that he was going to make his cartridge length 2.9995 inches to comply. So, in any event, I will make sure I forward that to you. Any other member items? Seeing none, any from Mr. Wosley?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I did receive significant correspondence between the last commission meeting and today. I received an email, as did, I believe, the entire commission this morning, relative to an agenda item, and I'll briefly discuss these right now, and then as we get to those items in the agenda, make sure that the commission is aware of the input. Received an email this morning with a request to move the waterfowl season setting meeting to the north from Doug Martin. I saw that was sent to the entire commission. I've had a number of emails from an individual seeking some opportunities to explore some specialty tags for disabled hunters and some opportunities there. Offered to engage with that individual just to make sure they're aware of process, both at the commission as well as the legislature, and where those regulations or statutes reside and what would be required. Also received a letter from Gene Green with the Carson Cab complimenting Staff Specialist Russell Wolstenhume for his engagement and availability to the Carson Cab on the waterfowl season setting effort. A couple press releases that have come out in the last day or two. The U.S. Forest Service announced that they would not be leasing any lands for oil exploration or drilling in the Rubies. The Fish and Wildlife Service sent out a press release that they were proposing a rule to delist wolves throughout their range in the West, which would affect Nevada, and turning management authority for wolves over to the state at some future point in the not too distant future. The nominated Secretary of Interior last week announced that the Secretarial Order 3362 on big game corridors, which was originally specific to pronghorn, antelope, elk, and mule deer, would also be adding bighorn sheep and moose. I received correspondence from Shikar Safari Club International relative to a donation that they had provided the department specific to purchasing a truck. The department had not moved forward and had not spent any of that money. Shikar Safari Club International has requested that those funds be returned in the amount of $25,000. We will be doing that. I received by certified mail a request from Gerald Lent to attend the big game draw. I will be providing a response consistent with the response that the same individual was sent last year. As the commission, I see also received significant input from Norm Sakey relative to waterfowl season dates, and we can certainly go to that when we get to that agenda item. And then lastly, received some correspondence from the Nevada Outfitters and Guides expressing their frustration that the department had unprofessionally and incompetently failed to meet a deadline. I did share the department's response with the chairman and vice chairman, just for your knowledge of that. They have been provided what they were told they would be provided, albeit somewhere in the neighborhood of 12 to 14 hours after that was promised. So that concludes the correspondence, I believe, that I've received since the last commission meeting. Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wosley. Any other member items? Seeing none, we will close agenda item number 3 and move on to agenda item number 4, county advisory boards to manage wildlife member items. Informational. CAB members may present emergent items. No action may be taken by the commission. Any item requiring commission action will be scheduled on a future commission agenda. Any CAB items in Reno?
None in Reno, Mr.
Thank you. How about Las Vegas?
Good morning, Chairman, Vice Chair, Commissioners.
Is your
Chad
mic,
Foster.
is your mic on?
Chad Foster, Douglas County Cab. At our meeting this week, a member of our board pointed out that there is no youth-specific fishing licenses available. We were able to see on the website that you can purchase a combo fishing hunting license. And the question arose of whether you needed to have hunter's education to purchase that license. And if so, that's kind of a hardship just to go take your child fishing. And so we were wondering if the department could explore offering just a specific fishing license to make it easier to take our kids fishing. That's all. Thanks.
Oh, Mr. Hyatt.
Question really, the Supreme Court recently ruled that most civil forfeitures are unconstitutional. Since this department has used civil forfeiture as part of enforcement for poaching in the past, what impact will that have on department's law enforcement capability? Thank you.
Any other CAB items here in Las Vegas? Seeing none, Mr. Wosley, you get a comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify. It appears that there may be an assumption that in order for a youth to be eligible to purchase a combination license, that they must first attend and pass hunter education, and that is not a requirement. That hunting license would allow them to go afield, certainly before age 12 and pursue upland birds and other things. It's just that those eligibilities, for example, the big game application that require hunter certification wouldn't be active until that certification was obtained. So it isn't a requirement for purchase, although there still may be some hardship in that there is some additional cost, but I believe it's a nominal difference.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I'm not sure it's appropriate, but if I could just clarify, I read the Supreme Court case on the forfeiture, and it didn't outlaw forfeiture. What it held was the maximum fine in the case was like $4,000, and they forfeited the Land Rover worth $49,000, and the court said that was clearly excessive, and that's what they held was not permitted. So just for the record.
Was that from the Nevada Supreme Court or the U.S.
No,
Supreme
United
Court?
States Supreme Court.
With that, we'll move on to agenda item number 5, approval of minutes. Chairman Johnston, for possible action, commission minutes may be approved from the January 25th and 26th, 2019 meeting. Does everyone have a copy of the minutes? Any comments to the minutes?
We have comment in Reno, Mr. Chairman.
Not public comment yet on the minutes. I'm still at the commission. Comments to the minutes from the commission. Commissioner McNinch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple, I don't know if we need to change, but maybe a couple of clarifications on page 3 during my WAFWA update. Somewhere in the middle, it's discussing Utah will consider taxing these types of weapons. I believe my comment was intended to indicate that Utah was not going to allow those types of weapons, the air guns and the air bows, to be used here shortly until they were being taxed, they were part of the Pittman-Robertson tax, excise tax. A couple more lines down, there's a statement, Nevada is changing their opinion of wildlife to be more in line with California's. And my intent was to indicate that Nevada's attitudes towards wildlife are very similar to those in California, that we're kind of moving that way. We weren't doing it intentionally, I guess. It's just, it's more of a something that's happening. And then the last line, there's a reference to it could be a game changer for wildlife agencies to receive a $26 million federal match. I don't know if that needs to be clarified, Tony. You see where I'm headed with that?
Yeah, absolutely.
And then on page 4, there was a reference to, up in the first paragraph, third line, just before you get to C, it says the Pittman-Robinson, and that should be Robertson, and it is referenced as Robertson throughout, so that's just one of those things that might have defaulted to it. And then one more on page 15. Gerald Lent, during his public comment, indicated that he was representing, I believe it should be Nevada Hunters Association, and it indicates Nevada Bow Hunters Association, so we should probably take out bow. I don't recall, but typically he represents Nevada Hunters Association, so. Thank you.
Any other comments to the minutes? I have a few comments starting on page 21. About midway through the page, there's Chairman Johnson stated that the commission does not have the authority to overturn a conviction of justice. It's about right in the middle. I believe that should read, does not have the authority to overturn a conviction from the justice court or of the justice court. In the next comment that I made, it says Chairman Johnson said that he could not claim that because the Ely court said he did, proven, it says without a reasonable doubt, it should be proven beyond a reasonable doubt. On the next page, on page 22, the second sentence of my comment, this case has already been heard and sentenced by a court, and the commission cannot overturn a court. It says appointed law. It should be a conviction. At the bottom of page 22, there said the commission hearing is not about what Mr. Hetzer should or shouldn't have been convicted of. It says should and shouldn't have been convicted. That and should be an or. The last sentence, it says he have not. It should read, he has not heard anything on how the department erred. And then in the motion on page 23, I believe it's if we start on the sentence 6 lines down all the way to the right-hand margin. On that same date, a notice of entry of the misdemeanor judgment was entered. Judgment needs to be correct. There's only one E in judgment. There's just a typo. Was entered advising Mr. Hetzer of his 10-day time period to appeal to, insert to, the district court. Further down, the motion says the commission does not have authority to remove or reduce. That should be the commission does not have authority to reverse or overturn the misdemeanor convention, nor has the authority to reduce the points given that were set forth in the NAC. Those are my comments to the minutes. Any further comments on the minutes? Seeing none, this is an action item. Any public comment in Reno on the minutes?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Gerald Lynn in Reno.
Yes, sir.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
I've got a problem with the minutes, and the part of it was caught, and the minutes aren't correct. On the item, it said that, and it was already caught, that I signed in as representing Nevada Bull Hunters, and that's not right. And you can check my card on that. And also, this was not my public testimony. This was my public testimony, not my testimony in item 8A. It's not what I said. These minutes don't reflect what I said, and you need to review the tapes. I gave many items representative of open meeting laws in Nevada, and on my testimony, and I wanted them in the minutes. And I gave the my pages of written testimony to the secretary, and I wanted them into the minutes, and they didn't get into the minutes. And so this needs to be reaccomplished according to the open meeting law, which I requested my comments be put in. And the comments that are put in there are my public comments, not my testimony on the transparency issue on 8A. And then, so they're all mixed up, and my testimony on 8A did not get in there, and so that has to be reaccomplished according to Nevada law. And I gave them to the secretary, and they're not here.
Mr. Lynn, I have a question. You say your comments were on topic 8A?
Say that again, please.
Your comments, as reflected in the minutes, are under item 8A.
The items in the minutes are my public comments, and my testimony on item 8A, my written testimony I presented is not in the minute. They're not in the minutes, which I request them to be in the minutes. And as everybody recalls, I gave many examples of open meeting records in the state of Nevada. Sexual predators and stuff like that are open records, and I went down with a whole list of them, and none of that got into my prepared testimony got into the minutes, Mr. Chairman.
Secretary Wosley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The requirement, as I understand it, and perhaps Dag Stockton can make sure I'm being truthful here, but the requirements under open meeting law as far as minute preparation and availability don't require that these minutes be approved here today, but be available for review. If it makes it easier, or if it's a better way to proceed forward, I would offer that the department go back. We have had some turnover within the director's office, and certainly could have unintentionally omitted testimony that was provided that may have been lost in the shuffle of personnel. So if it's in an abundance of caution, the commission's desire for the department to go back, review the tape, review these minutes, and ensure that the provided testimony is included, we could then bring them forward at the next commission meeting for approval.
This is Brian Stockton, Senior Deputy Attorney General, for the record, and that's Director Wosley's correct in that it'd be better to approve them at the next meeting than to approve minutes that are incorrect. And so that is allowed under the open meeting law.
Thank you. Let me finish with public comment, and we'll bring it back. Any further public comment on the minutes in Reno?
Mr. Chairman, may I comment again? If you look on page 81 of the open meeting law, it said the minutes must include, and under number D, it says if he or she has prepared written remarks, a copy of his or her written remarks, and submits a copy for the inclusion, the minutes must include that. And so on page 81 of the last open meeting law, it says the minutes, my testimony must be included in the minutes, and they're not. So therefore, I don't think the minutes should be approved till those are included.
Thank you, Mr. Lent. Any further public comment in Reno?
No further comment in Reno.
Thank you. Any public comment in Las Vegas? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the commission. Given the comments that I made to the minutes, as well as Commissioner McNinch, and I do recall Mr. Lamp, I remember him referring to written testimony. I believe he provided it to the secretary. I would suggest that we not take action on the minutes today. We get revised minutes for the next meeting, which I think we're going to have a meeting in April potentially, or we do it in the May meeting. But at one of the future meetings, we bring back the revised minutes from, was it the January meeting? I'm losing track of my months. From the January meeting, we take a look at them at that time, and then we can take action to approve or further comment. So if there's not going to be any further action, we don't need to take formal action to do that, do we?
No.
Okay. With that, then we'll close agenda item number 5. We'll move on to agenda item number 6, committee reports. Legislative committee report, Commissioner and Committee Chairman East for possible action. A report will be presented on the committee's recent meetings. The commission may review bills of interest, consider legislative committee recommendations, and may take official positions on any bills/BDRs. The commission may also choose to develop platforms on bills/BDRs by supporting or opposing general concepts contained within bills/BDRs, or discuss specific language, as well as anything else regarding the current legislative session. Support material is as of the legislative committee meeting held on January 25th, 2019 and February 20th, 2019. Bill and BDR language may be viewed online at, there's a website link in the agenda for the ledge.state.mv.us/app Nellis Rel 80th, 2019. Commissioner East.
Thank you, Chairman Johnston. I will give a brief update on the platforms that we discussed at our meeting this morning, and then if you have questions on specific bills, we can discuss those too. But you have all that in your packet, except for the few that have come forward in the last week or so. So I first want to thank the committee, Commissioner Johnston, Commissioner Valentine, and Greg Smith is our community committee member. We've met a couple of times since we've all been here together. So this morning we took platforms on AJR2 and SJR3, which are the opposition to the Desert National Wildlife Refuge, and added the naval expansion at Fallon to that, so that our platform would include opposition to the naval expansion. We are opposing 2 water bills, AB 30 and AB 51, until the bills include strong consideration or mandated consideration of any water management or tools given to the state engineer need to include wildlife and wildlife habitat. SB 275 we voted to oppose, and that is a bill to establish a board for the guides and outfitters, specifically taking some of the authority away from us and the and funding it through licensing, their licensing. We voted to support in concept BDR 902, which is, let me back up a few minutes.
Wildlife Heritage.
Wildlife Heritage. There's two components to BDR 902, and we're hoping to see that as a bill here soon. We've got lots of upcoming dates. One is transferring and using permits and tags to a person with life-threatening medical conditions or disabilities, or a youth under the age of 16. And the second provision would be to that NDOW use wildlife heritage account for use. It amends NRS 502.250 to add language expend any amount in the account that exceeds $5 million. And I believe that was it.
I think just one clarification, the
Yes.
committee's position on the expenditure of wildlife heritage account money was that the bill doesn't change the purposes for which the money can be used. It just allows for expenditure of some of the principal
Right.
down to a certain amount. But it would still go through the same process of Heritage Committee and approval and for the same purposes outlined in the statute. I think this issue's come up a couple times on the ability to use some of the principal to do wildlife heritage projects.
So we supported that in concept, and when the bill comes back to us, we'll take a further look at the bill to make sure that it addresses our concerns. Any questions?
No questions for Commissioner East? Any discussion before I take it out to public comment? Any public comment in Reno?
Yes, sir. For the record, this is Darrell Capurro, former member of the commission, representing myself today. I have some concerns about the language in Assembly Bill 83. On the first page, the provision relative to being able to defend yourself if your life and limb is threatened by a predator, you're taking out the word property. I read that to mean that I would have to stand by and watch a mountain lion kill my cat, dogs, sheep, cattle, or any other property that are there. If that's the case, I think property should be returned to the language in order to allow that. That's my comment.
Thank you. Further public comment in Reno?
No further comment in Reno.
Thank you. Public comment in Las Vegas? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the commission. Yes.
Chairman Johnston, I'm going to ask Kaylee to come up and clarify the amendment to Mr. Capurro's
Okay.
concern.
Haley Taylor with the department for the record. We did submit an amendment to this bill addressing some of the public comment from the past committee meeting, which addresses the light provision and harassment. And then as far as the most recent public comment, we did add in a protection for livestock and pets. So the word property is taken out, but you can still protect your livestock and pets as well as yourself.
And that was in connection, just for the record, AB 83.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Olmberg?
I guess I had another question myself on AB 83 in the same when we're talking about harassment and they removed the light, but I also had a question why, and I talked to Tyler a little bit about the horse, if that couldn't be a little bit misrepresented with the horse. I understand his intent to prevent the horses from, being able to chase down or chase wildlife, but what about hunting off of them? We obviously drive and we push animals around with the horses. Is that a concern? Is having a horse in there?
Kaylee Taylor again for the record. That provision is mostly discussing harassment. If you're hunting with your horse, it's kind of a different intent because you have an intent to take. So this is just regarding harassment.
Yeah, I guess that's exactly what Tyler said, but when the definition of harass, it says drive, and drive is part of that, and that's what concerned me between the two of them being in there. You know, as the definition of harassment is to drive. You know, sometimes I believe the game gets pushed or driven by the horses intentionally for take. So.
I can definitely make a note of that if you guys would like us to address that before this is work session. We can definitely do that. Tyler's not here, so.
Right. It was just, you know, it was something a question that I had, and I put forward to Tyler. I thought I'd bring it out.
Okay.
Further comment or discussion? I was more struck by the inclusion of the term sailboat in that statute than anything, but. If there's no further discussion, I don't know if someone wants to entertain a motion or make a motion. There's obviously some positions that have been taken on bills also at the February,
Yes,
and maybe we should go.
those were included
Okay, those were included?
in the packet.
Yeah. Does anyone need an update on that?
We do have 2 more meetings scheduled for March 26th and April 15th to just stay abreast of everything that's coming at us very quickly.
Commissioner Valentine?
I'm just curious whether or not the other commission members have had an opportunity to look at the recommendations from the committee as far as the Senate bills and Assembly bills are concerned, and if they have any comments regarding our positions on those current positions.
Commissioner McNinch?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Not with the current platforms and positions. I do have a question about another one, so I just didn't want to forget about asking that. I want an opportunity as we get beyond this, I guess.
Go ahead.
SB 96, it's on page 8. And it's discussing establishes a program to provide matching funds to assist in obtaining certain federal grants. And considering, you know, the potential for Recovering America's Wildlife Act to be sitting out there, I don't know. Certainly this doesn't apply to that, but if there's an effort being made to mandate that money be provided so we can take advantage of those, take advantage of grants or available monies, we might just kind of keep track of it. It might present an opportunity. I don't know. I don't want to shoot holes in somebody else's boat, but there might be an opportunity for some conversation there if we, you know, if that's where it might go. I don't know. I just wanted to throw that out there.
Okay. We can add it to our tracking. It's on our tracking list. I believe it's under the department's tracking list, but we can move it up to the committee level if that's what the commission desires.
I mean, it's referring to grants, so a little different critter, but who knows where that'll go. So.
Okay.
Is there a public comment? I opened it up to public comment. I guess I can open it back up without a problem? Sure.
For the record, Henry Krinka, speaking for Nevada Outfitters and Guides. I just had a question. Did I hear right that on Senate Bill 275, the commission was opposed to that?
The committee, the legislative committee addressed that bill this morning in its committee meeting and was opposed to it. So the commission has not taken a stance on that bill. It just depends whether or not they would or would not follow the recommendation of the legislative committee.
Thank you.
Good morning. Dave Talaga from Clark County CAB. I have 3 comments. Assembly Bill 74, Senate Bill 85, and Senate Bill 120. On Assembly Bill 74, which is buying, selling, trading, dealing in certain antlers, etc., the Clark County CAB felt there was two major issues as written. First, the current language of the bill is very confusing, and the NDOW agent who was present at our CAB meeting was unsure exactly how to enforce the language as written. And B, as written, there appears to be no benefit to wildlife, the public, or the hunter. So the salient question at the meeting was, what is the purpose of this bill, and what do they hope to accomplish with it? That's AB 74.
Okay.
Senate Bill 85. The intent of this proposed legislation is to stop the spread of the chronic wasting disease. That's to be applauded. However, the wording for both the hunter and law enforcement is problematic. For example, Section 1.1 forbids carcasses of the listed animals to be brought into the state. But Section 1.2 allows for portions of the carcasses of said animals to be brought into the state. Additionally, Sections 2B and 2C are on the verge of contradicting each other. Once again, the game warden present could not offer a clear understanding of how that would be enforced, how it would be interpreted, let alone enforced. We understand the importance of the bill, but the wording certainly needs to be addressed so that the hunter and law enforcement understand how to abide by it. And I might add, in other conversations, if you shoot an animal in, say, Arizona, you have to leave the head attached to the carcass, or you have to have the head as identification. But if you try to bring that into Nevada, this bill would make it a criminal offense to do that. So the wording needs to be cleaned up to address those issues. That's Senate Bill 85. Lastly, Senate Bill 120, the issuance of orders of protection relating to high-risk behavior, etc. This is ostensibly a well-intended bill to increase public safety. However, the wording of this bill leaves little doubt its intent is to single out citizens who possess firearms or own firearms. As such, the definition of, quote, high-risk, unquote, behavior appears to subject an otherwise law-abiding gun owner to subjective notions of his fellow citizen and attending law officers, resulting in the confiscation of his protected property, i.e. guns. This bill seems intent on prosecuting a crime that has yet to be committed. For this reason, the wording needs to be tightened up to deal with the real problem, which is stopping people with perhaps mental illness or criminal backgrounds from owning or purchasing a firearm without penalizing law-abiding citizens. That's SB 120. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any additional comment? Given the fact that I took additional public comment in Las Vegas, I'll make sure there's no additional public comment in Reno as well.
No comment in Reno.
Thank you. I'll bring it back to the commission. There was just one comment. There was some discussion this morning at the Legislative Committee on SB 120, and a well-intentioned bill. I understand what's driving. We found the language very confusing in terms of high-risk behavior occurs when someone poses a risk of personal injury to himself or herself or another person by possessing a firearm. And then it talks about acquiring another firearm in the preceding 6 months. We just find that language confusing. Is it if I own a gun and I bought a gun in the preceding 6 months? And it just doesn't make sense to us as we read it. In any event, I don't know what action we took on that bill or
Chairman Johnston, we determined we'd track this bill only And if number 10 goes away, we'd revisit it. That section 10 that is so confusing that we would revisit it. SB 85, there's a lot to SB 85, and there were some concerns. It's a well-intentioned bill to hopefully prevent the spread of CWD. And I understand that there's some concerns. We're tracking this one as well. So we support it in concept, but we haven't taken there will be amendments, I guess I should say. So once we have those amendments, we'll revisit it.
Further discussion or comments? Commissioner Olmberg?
Just one more time, if we could go through it page by page, and so that I'm clear on exactly. We went through it pretty fast. I was trying to flip through some pages. I don't want to make sure that I miss something. So if we could start on page 1, if you don't mind, Tiffany.
Oh, sure.
And just go through and what the committee's actual position was.
Sure.
So keep track of that. Thank you.
Absolutely. AB 74 is the antler bill. Deemed the antler bill. The committees voted to support it in concept. As I said, there will be amendments. SB 55 is the provision relating to carrying a loaded rifle or shotgun. It clarifies muzzle loader, and the committee voted to support. AB 83 is a very long considered cleanup bill. It's an NDOW bill. And there are a lot of provisions, and we did talk about a few of those, and the committee did vote to support. SB 85 is the CWD bill, and the committee did vote to support. We know there will be amendments to that bill. SB 17 is a bill that makes changes relating to enforcement of child support obligations. And the committee did vote to support that. AB 30 and AB 51 are the water bills that we talked about, the platforms not to support unless they include that mandated wildlife and wildlife habitat language. AB 70 is the open meeting law. We are remaining neutral because it really doesn't affect us. We're doing everything it asks us to do. AB 84 is the issuance of state general obligation bonds to protect, preserve, and obtain the benefits of property and natural and cultural resources of the state of Nevada. The committee voted to support that. SB 120, we're tracking. AJR 2 and SJR 3 are the opposition to the expansion of the U.S. Air Force, and we talked about a platform this morning and brought to you to include the Naval Air Station. That's hard to say. And that goes to a work session on Monday. And then BDR 902, the committee voted to support, and we brought that platform to you this morning. And I think that's it.
Just one additional one would be SB 275.
And SB 275.
We added to the list, the tracking list today.
Yes.
And the committee took the position to oppose it. SB 275 is a bill that was introduced to create a separate board for master guide and sub-guide licensing. And it's unclear, one, the purpose of the bill or why it's needed. There's also some concern about some language that was being struck in the bill regarding revocation of guide licenses. I don't know if that was intended or unintended, but the committee's view was a separate board was not necessary. And that needed further clarification, especially given that certain language regarding revocation of guiding licenses seemed to have been struck from the proposed legislation, and what exactly the board would and would not be empowered to do.
Thank you for that. Any further questions? No, you're welcome.
Further discussion? Comment? Motion? Commissioner McNinch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So if we make a motion, do we need to address, mention each one of these, or would it be as simple as saying the action taken by the committee that the commission would support the platforms? Is it important to specify each one?
As long as it's clear in the record what you're doing, so if you're just adopting the committee's list, the actions of the committee, I think that's clear enough. Obviously, if you're going to make any changes to that, that would need to be specified, because the list is included in the support materials. So I don't think you have to go one by one. You can just refer to the list.
Okay.
Unless there's exceptions.
With that in mind, then, I would make a motion that we approve the recommendations of the platforms established by the committee, included in the list presented to us with our packet, plus what was, I'm sorry?
SB 96. SB 96.
Yeah, what am I missing on SB 96?
That's the one you asked us to track.
Oh, I think just put it on the radar. It's
Yeah.
not super important to track, but to include what the committee's work this morning is what I was going to say.
So if I understand the motion is that the commission adopt the recommendations of the legislative committee as presented.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
I'll second that.
Okay. I have a motion by Commissioner McNinch, a second by Commissioner Alberg, that the commission adopt the recommendations of the legislative committee, including the actions taken this morning at its meeting. Everyone clear on the motion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 8-0 with Commissioner Hubbs absent. With that, we'll close agenda item 6A and move on to agenda item 6B, Wildlife Damage Management Committee Report and Fiscal Year 2019 Draft Predation Management Plan. Commission Chairman and Committee Chairman Olmberg. That has a really nice ring to it. And Wildlife Staff Biologist Pat Jackson for possible action. The Commission will hear a report from the Wildlife Damage Management Committee Chairman regarding the proposed fiscal year 2019 Predator Management Plan, and the Commission may take action to provide recommendations for modifications of the draft for the May Commission meeting. Commissioner Olmberg.
Yes, we met last night. I had Staff Specialist Jackson practice up his presentation. We went over his presentation once again. He has included, I hope everybody's had a chance to review the second draft. He did include a bunch of comments that were made in our previous committee meeting, added some supportive it had his own comment section of the staff comments. Were all really good. He added more support material too, in terms of the literature cited in the specific places in the presentation. So I guess overall, we were happy with it. We looked at Parks recommendation. They wanted to drop project 74, the monitoring of the California bighorn sheep, and take those funds and move them over to the general mountain lion project 37. And I think Pat included that in moving those funds over after March 1st, but not dropping the project. I think it's one of the, as in discussion, it's one of those very important things. It's that project is a successful project. We started in 2015. We removed some lions. There has been no further depredation on the sheep. The sheep are not necessarily, growing up off the charts, but it's successful. Where we did add a tag in through there, and I think it's very important that we follow through on that. And so we supported them keeping that project. So as a whole, we thought that the plan and the modifications that Mr. Jackson added were all good, and we approved it.
Thank you. Questions, comments for Commissioner Holmberg? None. Mr. Jackson?
Pat Jackson, staff specialist for the record. I'm just here to answer questions. I don't have anything to report out on other than last night.
Thank you. Commissioner East.
I didn't see the revised presentation in my packet. Are we going to get that presentation?
Pat Jackson, staff specialist for the record. No, I provided that last night,
So I missed out.
the presentation.
Okay. Thank you.
They were available online. It was under the committee.
Oh, okay. I'll go there.
So they were in fact available.
Okay. Thank you.
But we, as a commission, approved the plan in May, correct? It goes on the agenda at the May meeting, I believe.
Pat Jackson, staff specialist for the record. That is correct.
And so we will see the final draft that incorporated any changes from last night's committee meeting in connection with the May commission meeting for final approval. Okay. Which would also include the changes that resulted from the January commission meeting.
Very correct.
Thank you. I will take it out to public comment, though. Public comment in Reno on agenda item 6B. Reno, do you hear us?
Sorry, no comment in Reno.
Thank you. Public comment in Las Vegas, Ms. Wright.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chair and Commission. I see the agenda item is talking about, it says the 2019 draft predation management plan. Did you correct that to 2020 during the approval of the agenda? Anyway, just a small point. And secondly, were there changes made to the draft at last night's committee hearing?
No, we did not make any changes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further public comment in Las Vegas? Seeing none, I don't believe there's any action, or I don't believe there's any action that we need to take. It'll be an agenda item in connection with the May meeting, where we'll review the predation management plan. And is that correct? Okay. With that, we'll close agenda item 6B. Does anyone need a break before we continue? We will be breaking around 12 and 45 minutes, but if anyone needs a break now, seeing none, we'll move on. Reports informational, agenda item number 7A, Department Activity Report. Secretary Wasley, informational report will be provided on the Nevada Department of Wildlife Activities. Mr. Wasley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will endeavor to be brief. Director's Office, the legislative session started February 4th. Director's Office has been quite busy attending bill hearings, working with legislators, as well as working with some of our conservation organizations. The department is scheduled to attend a joint Assembly Ways and Means and Senate Committee on Finance, subcommittee meeting on public safety, natural resources, and transportation for our department's budget hearing. It was scheduled for this week. It was postponed. We'll be having that hearing on March 22nd. Friends of Nevada Wildlife Legislative Luncheon is scheduled for March 19th. The theme for that is Taste of Nevada. Again, we will be providing some wild harvested game meats. We will also be providing some a vegetarian option with Nevada-grown produce, and even a vegan option with Nevada-grown mountain mahogany smoked tofu wings. We'll have a deer and elk taco bar with some pronghorn, deer, and elk summer sausage. We've been working quite a bit with some of our wildlife groups. Gil Yannick has provided some key support in that effort. The department is working aggressively with Calcomai Enterprises again for the upcoming application period, which is set to begin on March 18th and end on April 29th. Law Enforcement Division, game wardens around the state, big game and trapping seasons have closed, and summer fishing and boating have not yet gotten underway. So Law Enforcement Division is taking advantage of this time to complete mandatory annual training with some specialized training out of the state. Two of the three suspects in a Lincoln County antelope poaching case have reached plea agreements for their involvement, in which they received a gross misdemeanor for unlawful possession of big game. They each received a 1-year suspended sentence with 18 months of probation, to include a search clause along with no alcohol or drug use for the extent of the probation. They also received a $1,000 civil fine for Operation Game Thief, along with $650 in fines for the court and the loss of hunting and fishing privileges for the extent of their probation. The primary suspect will be sentenced later this month. Game wardens inspected the 2 wildlife rehab facilities down in the Las Vegas area for compliance with their permit. No problems were found. This was after Clark County Animal Control was informed of possible violations in the rehab community. Other non-permitted entities are being evaluated by Clark County, and they'll be investigated if the need arises. Game wardens in Lincoln County issued a citation to a Utah man the weekend of March 9th for collecting shed antlers during the closed season. Approximately 20 pounds of antlers were seized. Antler season patrols are planned and underway in several parts of eastern Nevada. As of about an hour ago, the NDOW Facebook page had nearly 1,000 comments on a post that the department put up relative to this citation. From the Data and Technology Services Division, the department conducted a successful spring turkey application period and draw, awarding 135 tags. With only 2 emails to potential turkey hunters, the department realized over 74% growth in spring turkey applications. The department also closed a successful non-resident restricted mule deer guided hunt application period, which realized over 16% growth in applications, and that doesn't count the bonus point only application period. The non-resident guided mule deer draw is scheduled to take place Wednesday, March 27th, with results posted by Friday, March 29th. The department has prepared for the 2019 Big Game Draw application period, which opens this Monday and continues through the 29th. Preparations include scheduling NDOW staff coverage for our customer service support center, finalizing and testing hunt seasons and choices, clarifying customer opt-out questions for making personal information or draw results private, and system load testing, which successfully handled 12,000 concurrent users with minimal loss of speed or service. The Geographic Information System program continues to improve our data management standards and practices by developing updated versions of the Winter Raptor and Sage-Grouse Lek Survey data collection apps for use by field biologists. GIS program staff have also developed a beta version of a bat data collection app for testing this year, and have participated in Westwide Crucial Habitat Assessment Tool coordination and Nevada spring snail conservation efforts with state and federal partners. Finally, from DATS, the department is pleased to welcome Eric Duggar as our new Information Technology Professional 4. He will oversee the department's information technology program. Eric has over 18 years' experience in managing IT systems and is excited to apply his skills and expertise to improving the department's IT capacity. Wildlife Diversity Division bi-monthly tracking of 13 desert tortoises is being conducted in the Red Rock National Conservation Area. This is a collaborative effort with the Bureau of Land Management, looking at tortoise home range sizes and assessing population connectivity adjacent to urban development. The Tortoise Group has been instrumental in helping to track and train volunteers for our tortoise study over the winter. Incidentally, we observed one of our tortoises under about 6 inches of snow during the last snowstorm in Vegas on February 21st. When touched, the tortoise responded by retracting its legs and breathing audibly. This is one of the few observations of a tortoise overwintering with exposure to this amount of snow. Bi-monthly radio tracking of 9 Gila monsters are being conducted at Red Rock Canyon National Conservation Area with volunteer assistance. On March 1st, we observed 2 Gila monsters basking on the apron of their dens, the first of the season. This is an ongoing long-term project in partnership with Clark County, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and the USGS. Golden Eagle work has begun for the season. Diversity biologists have assessed territory occupancy for the 2019 breeding season. 12 of 14 territories are currently occupied. A total of 7 eagles are being tracked with satellite transmitters, 3 territory holding adults, and 4 non-territorial individuals of various ages. Wildlife diversity biologists are continuing to track 2 northern goshawks outfitted with satellite transmitters on their wintering habitat. To date, 6 satellite transmitters were deployed in summer of 17 and 18, of which one bird died to undetermined causes. 2 transmitters are down but have not yet been retrieved due to access and snow load issues, and 1 transmitter has stopped transmitting for unknown reasons. So far, all individuals have stayed in northeastern Nevada for the winter, with local movements between pinyon juniper woodlands, mountain brush communities, and riparian areas. Winter raptor surveys have been completed as of January 31st. February is dedicated to entering all the data for the 58 routes that were covered. Even with the federal shutdown, our federal partners still took it upon themselves to get in the field and complete their routes on their own time. We're grateful for their commitment to Nevada's natural resources, and because of this, we were able to get most routes covered. Camera surveys for marten and snowshoe hare have continued at Lake Tahoe despite record snowfall in February. 4 cameras were deployed at Tahoe Meadows as part of a resurvey effort of historical marten locations, and 3 of those cameras, 3 of those cameras captured photographs of marten, including the first photo of 2 martens together that has been captured in 17 years of department surveys at Lake Tahoe. An additional camera was placed on a suspected marten den at Tahoe Meadows, and video was captured of a single marten using and maintaining that den site through several major winter storms. Also in the Tahoe area, 3 cameras were deployed to capture images of snowshoe hares after tracks were found in several locations at Tahoe Meadows. One of those cameras was placed on the suspected den, and that camera successfully captured photos of a snowshoe hare. However, the den became completely covered by snow by the end of February and was no longer in use. The Fisheries Division, in 2018, the Department's Aquatic Invasive Species Program statewide conducted over 34,000 watercraft inspections and nearly 1,000 full vessel decontaminations. About 55% of the inspections and most of the decontaminations were conducted at Lake Mead and Lake Mojave. Northern Nevada seasonal AIS stations will begin operations in May. The AIS inspection station at Alamo on US 93 is a critical facility to protect eastern Nevada waters and the Pacific Northwest because it provides the ability to inspect potentially infested watercraft from the lower Colorado River, Lake Powell, and other waters where we don't have inspection ability. We're working with the Department of Transportation to implement facility upgrades and improve signage. That station conducted almost 900 inspections and 60 decontaminations in 2018. Much of western and northern Nevada are above or well above average snowpack levels. We anticipate a better than average ability to maintain fisheries this year, but high spring runoff may delay trout stocking for some waters, including the Truckee, Carson, and Walker rivers. The upper Colorado River Basin is also above average in snowpack, currently around 130%. It won't be enough to significantly improve storage at Lake Mead, but might provide some stability to declining lake levels. Improvements and dredging of the collection ditch at Ruby Lake National Wildlife Refuge to improve water flow and enhance fisheries on the refuge are ongoing, and results have been very good so far. This project has been planned for several years and was partially funded through the Department's Habitat Conservation Fee Program. State record for yellow perch was tied on February 16th with an angler catching a 1 pound, 8 ounce, 13.5-inch perch from Wild Horse Reservoir. The other state record yellow perch was caught at Dufferina Ponds on the Sheldon National Wildlife Refuge in 1987. A media trout stocking event is scheduled for March 22nd at Sparks Marina and Paradise Ponds in the Reno area. This will kick off the spring stocking season for northern Nevada and encourage our customers to purchase fishing licenses for this year. Fisheries biologists in the southern region will be conducting the annual Razorback roundups on Lake Mead and Lake Mojave in March. These annual surveys assess the status of populations of the endangered razorback sucker in the Colorado River reservoirs. Lake Mead contains the largest, persistent, and recruiting population of razorback remaining in the Colorado River system and is critical to species recovery. The Habitat Division, to date, the Department and 15 other conservation partners have pooled and spent approximately $3.2 million across approximately 113,000 acres of wildfire rehabilitation. The funds have been allocated for a combination of seed application, herbicide, and herbicide application across wildfire impacted lands. Fires where the department is actively working include Martin Fire, Goshute Cave Fire, Goose Creek, Sheep Creek, Strawberry, Payne, Crest Springs, Echo, West Duck, and Sugarloaf fires. Snowpack conditions are above average across the state, with some basins being well above average. As of March 11th, Truckee River system is at 170% of normal. Carson River is 179% of normal. Walker River is 169%. 100%. The upper Humboldt is at 136%, and eastern Nevada 142%. These above average snowpacks should greatly enhance our wildfire rehabilitation efforts, but our wildlife management areas will be preparing for possible flood events. Water development crews are in the midst of the annual volunteer build season. The southern crew has already rebuilt the 5-ram unit, and the next project will be the Woody Guzzler rebuild in the Sheep Range. BLM is currently working on the Silver State Trail Environmental Assessment public draft, which should be available for review late March to early April. Included in this draft will be a more wildlife-friendly alternative developed in coordination with our NDOW biologists. This alternative was specifically requested by the BLM. NDOW has been working in providing this alternative route primarily to incorporate the most recent data to address wildlife concerns and impacts to greater sage grouse, mule deer, and elk along the Silver State Trail. Further, we're working to ensure greater sage grouse seasonal timing restrictions, as well as ensuring that monitoring and mitigation are incorporated into the most recent EA. Northern Nevada Guzzler crew is back to full swing with the hiring of Colton Brunson as the new water development biologist in Winnemucca. Colton was a seasonal employee with the department for several years and was most recently worked as a wildlife area technician at the Steptoe Wildlife Management Area. He has experience with construction and holds ecology and fish and wildlife management degrees from the University of Montana Western. The Northern Crew's first build will take place this weekend with the Crown Peak Guzzler outside of Fallon. The department provided extensive comments to the Fallon Naval Air Station, who released the draft legislative environmental impact statement for the proposed Fallon Range and Training Center expansion. Many of our previously submitted comments to the administrative draft were not resolved in the public version of the draft EIS. The department continues to meet with the Navy to develop an agreed upon plan for managed access on the expanded withdrawal. However, progress to date has been very limited. The Sagebrush Ecosystem Technical Team is currently drafting temporary regulation language to formalize former Governor Sandoval's executive order requiring compensatory mitigation for new and expanding anthropogenic disturbances on state and federal lands in Nevada. The regulation hearing approval by the Sagebrush Ecosystem Council and final adoption is expected to occur at the next council meeting, which is on March 19th. Brady Whipple has been selected to fill the Wildlife Area Supervisor position at the Kirch Wildlife Management Area. He started with the agency as a seasonal at Keith Pittman and has been a Wildlife Area Technician at Overton for the last 2 years. The Wildlife Heritage Program has a record amount of funds available for new projects in the upcoming fiscal year. $979,702.65. The department staff received and are reviewing 19 proposals for FY 2020 that are seeking a total of around $1.2 million. These proposals will be sent to the Wildlife Heritage Committee and the Commission in mid-April, and in time for the committee members to review them before the May committee meeting. Conservation Education Division Public Information Officers conducted interviews with Channel 4 in Reno, KKOH Radio, Carson Now, and the Nevada Appeal about bobcat sightings in neighborhoods. Conservation Education staff planned a campaign to promote the big game application period. So far, 5 emails have gone out to hunters encouraging them to renew their hunting licenses and start getting ready for the application period. The staff produced and printed the 2019 Big Game Season Regulation Book for the department and also posted numerous social media posts, recorded a podcast, and has planned to send out 2 press releases to the media for the campaign. The department and the Ruby Mountain Rios of National Wild Turkey Federation teamed up to host the 4th Annual Elko Sportsman's Expo the first weekend of March. Between 5,000 and 6,000 attendees visited a record number of 48 booths, including 22 nonprofit NGO and agency booths. Approximately 500 kids visited the department kids activity room, tying flies, shooting archery, decorating wildlife t-shirts, playing laser shot, and learning about wildlife. Con Ed staff partnered with Wild Sheep Foundation for the 2019 Reno Sheep Show, February 7th through 9th at the Reno Convention Center. There were nearly 1,250 kids registered for the event and close to 4,000 that attended the youth wildlife exhibit section of the event. Department staff and volunteers worked a variety of educational stations, again including fly tying, archery, casting, and wildlife education stations. There were 32 department volunteer instructors that assisted with the show, plus setup and breakdown of the event. Con Ed Trout in the Classroom program has been a great success so far this year. Angler education staff supplied over 50 classrooms with fish tanks and thousands of trout eggs. Currently, 70 classrooms are utilizing the Trout in the Classroom fish tanks. Once the trout grow large enough to be released, staff schedule trout release field trips at local waterways throughout the western region. There have already been over 1,600 students that have participated in the releases, and the program is only halfway finished. Hunter education staff and volunteer instructors have completed 16 hunter education certification classes during the past months. Con Ed staff also successfully taught 2 wild game cooking classes with a total of 75 participants. Hunter education instructor classes are set almost every weekend until the application deadline, with many weekends having multiple classes. Friday, March 8th was Ivy Sante's official last day with the department. After nearly 25 years of service to the people of Nevada, she's now retired to New Mexico and her home on the San Juan River. Lastly, from the game division, department staff attended the Association of Fish and Wildlife Agencies meeting at the North American Wildlife Management Conference held during March 4th through the 8th in Denver, Colorado. While at the conference, game staff attended and participated in multiple meetings and presentations. Division Administrator Wakeling chaired the Human Wildlife Conflict Working Group, which has completed a best management practices document entitled Methods for Managing Mule Deer in Populated Areas. This paper was approved by the Wildlife Resources Policy Committee and will be submitted for publication through the Human Wildlife Interaction Monograph Series. Game division staff and several biologists from various regions participated in the pronghorn translocation to the Yakima tribe in Washington State. Overall, the capture was a success. We captured 54 animals from Management Area 6 near Carlin, north of I-80 for the translocation. And although there have been, at present, approximately 11 deaths, Game Division staff is working with biologists from the Yakima tribe to identify potential causes for those mortalities that may have resulted from the capture. A mountain lion that was radio marked following release from a foothold trap has moved from the Pyramid Lake vicinity to south of Portland, Oregon. This is an unusually large movement for a female mountain lion. In addition, of the 8 satellite radio collars currently deployed in the Delamar mountain range on mountain lions, one of these female lions has dispersed to Utah. This is 2 relatively long-range movements by female mountain lions in separate investigations that we've documented this fiscal year. Lastly, snowcock hunter information has been tabulated. 64 hunters reported that they hunted 177 days and harvested 13 snowcock and observed 441 birds. No birds were reported being harvested in Unit 101. And that concludes the department activity report. As always, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Director Wasley. Any questions for Mr. Wasley? Seeing none, we'll move on to agenda item number 7B, litigation report. Senior Deputy Attorney General Brian Stockton, informational discussion and consideration of possible settlement in Smith v. Board of Wildlife Commissioners is on the agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senior Deputy Attorney General Brian Stockton. So the possible settlement, the settlement conference did not happen. The settlement, Supreme Court settlement judge looked at the case last week and determined that it was not appropriate for mediation and issued the findings, and the briefing schedule has been reinstated. The plaintiffs have 90 days to file their opening brief, and then we'll respond to that. As far as updates on your materials, the number 2 is the Truckee Carson Irrigation District case. That's the recoupment case. NDOW has participated in that case to make sure that there's no attempt to use NDOW's water rights to satisfy the recoupment on behalf of TCID. The courts have been pretty consistent in holding that that our water can't be used to satisfy those claims. But recently, the Fallon Paiute Shoshone tribe has filed a motion to participate in the calculation proceedings, and we're going to monitor that and see if we need to get involved to make sure we protect NDOW's water rights, which are primarily for the the Carson Lake and Pasture area. So the other one is on the Walker River, just a couple of updates. We did get a scheduling order for discovery. Nothing happens fast in the Walker River, so it's out quite a ways. But May 1st, the United States and the tribe are going to file a more definite statement of their claims, which they have, verbally said they will be modest. So hopefully that will be the case. And then at some time, and I don't recall the dates exactly, but midsummer to late summer, we'll be filing our answer to the complaint, which was, I think, filed in 1992. So, that's all the updates I have. Are there any questions?
Any questions for Mr. Stockton? Seeing none, thank you. With that, we'll move on to agenda item 7C, possible language and department procedure regarding confidentiality of personal information in big game draw results. Data and Technology Services Division Administrator Chet Van Dellen, informational. The Commission will be provided a demonstration of a possible department procedure regarding how customers may request to make their personal information confidential and how the department may proceed with the public posting of draw results. Mr. Van Dellen, there you are.
Thank you.
Waiting to see you there.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If you'll excuse me, I'd like to give a short demonstration, so I need the keyboard, if that's okay to sit over here.
Absolutely fine.
Okay. Chet Van Dellen for Nevada Department of Wildlife, for the record. After extensive feedback from the public and from the Commission, the department is continuing to refine its process to implement an existing regulation allowing customers to opt out of their personal information, including name and contact information, from publicly available lists. After discussion with the Commission, the department tried to create a solution that will identify specific areas where your information could be posted or shared with third parties versus the information that is posted as part of the draw results. So what you'll see here are a couple of slides and then a demonstration of how we are going to try to implement this. The first part is pertaining to information requested by the department. All of these requests are funneled through the director's office and require a form and documentation so that we're accountable for any information that is requested and then subsequently delivered by the department. So if we get a request from an interested third party, it could be a guide, it could be a small business, it could be a market researcher, it could be a member of the public. They're all treated the same. They're all handled through a data request process. They're all free of charge, and they're all pulled from our customer list depending on the nature of the request. So what we'd like to do is when you interact with our system, whether you're at a vendor or at a department counter or logging into the website online, we're going to ask you this question. We'll ask you at one time when you interact with the system, and then you can update your answer at any time in your account settings. The language we are proposing right now is your name and contact information may be requested by third parties such as guides, taxidermists, market researchers, or other entities. How would you like the department to respond to such requests? Option 1, please keep my information private. Option 2, please allow my information to be shared. What we classify as personal information would be your name, your mailing address, your physical street address, your phone number, and your email address. It's basically anything that an outside entity could use to get in touch with you. And if you choose to remove your information, we would prevent them from contacting you upon your request. The customer city, state, or zip code may be included to represent anonymous customers. Some examples of that are some boat companies request a list of all the boats that are registered, and we can remove the customer name and address, but still tell them that the register is in a certain zip code, that they're not identifiable by a person in that instance. And as always, social security number or other identifiers such as the driver's license number, Trapper ID, anything like that is always confidential. That can never be requested by the outside entities. So our second approach is for the draw results specifically. What we'd like to do here is when you apply each year, we will ask you this question, which pertains specifically to the results of the draw, which we post on our website, ndllicensing.com, immediately following the finalization of the draw process. We'll ask you one time each year, and you would update your answer each year that you apply. The department publicly posts the results of each big game draw on ndowlicensing.com every year. How would you like the department to manage your draw results this year? Option 1, please keep my draw results private. Option 2, please include my draw results on the list. The department's committed to posting the draw results in a format that's easily read and obtainable by anyone. Last year we did a PDF format because PDF is a freely available reading software. This year we'll also include a CSV format, which is just a text file that you could open in Excel or other software so you can sort the results. We also heard feedback that we posted the results in name alphabetical order, and it would be more helpful to post those results in grouped by tag type. So we'll do that this year as well and group them by tag type. The draw results are posted on ndowlicensing.com as soon as the email and results have been posted to each individual hunter. So you will get your personal results before any public results are posted, but that action is in fact quite simultaneous in Calcomy's system. So the time difference between that is negligible. But we do finalize your payment and then post your results to your account immediately preceding when we would post the public list on the website. So we're committed to posting them group by name, hunt name, and we will show the customer name. We will show the result, successful versus unsuccessful, and then we will show the season, unit group, and weapon class if they are successful. So there's no contact information, but you can clearly identify the hunter on that list by name. If you've opted to have your results removed, we will still post the results, but we will replace your name with a sort of masked number that is unique to you, but no one knows who that is. So, for example, Commissioner East could be, Hunter 123, and Commissioner McNinch could be Hunter 9876, and those results, that number is assigned to you for every tag that you have applied for, but nobody knows that's you, so that you can have the transparency and see whether somebody drew 1 or 15 tags because that's the same person, but their actual name is still masked because they've opted out of showing it in a public setting. I know this is terrible and you can't read it, but this would be an example of how the results would be posted, where you can see those customer identifiers in there. I just wanted to give a quick example of how that might look. We can certainly refine this process when it's time to post this in May. But you can see that the non-resident antelope horns longer than ears tag is the first grouping. You can see public names. These are not actual results. This is just an example from last year. But you could see the person's name, they were successful, and what unit group and weapon and season they drew versus the customer 1, 2, 3, 5, might be a 3, was unsuccessful, and so on. And then that customer ID is consistent to that customer for all results. So you can see, what person drew what tags. You just don't know what that person is because they've decided to keep their information hidden from public view. Now, as far as transparency goes, we've committed to an audit last year of the draw results, which found no exceptions. The draw results can be verified if it comes to that process. We keep 4 copies of the results in 4 different locations that are sealed. In terms of worrying about actual transparency of those results, if it came to an ordered audit, that can be performed at any time with the full data set, just not in a public setting. I'm going to risk my reputation here and do a live demo, which is always a terrible idea. But here we have our test site. This is not our live site. Anything I do in here is not actually real, but I'm going to log in as if I was coming into the system after we implement this strategy based on the Commission's feedback. And the first thing, you go to your account. This is one of our employees, Aaron Keller. But let's say I want to apply for tags. The first thing the system does is ask me that question. So I cannot proceed in the system without answering that question. So let's say I choose to keep my information private. I can submit that, and then I can interact with the site as normal. Then if I go to my account, in my profile, I can change that option right here at any time. I'm going to move a little quickly so you can't see where Aaron lives. But let's say I want to apply for tags. Aaron's going to apply for elk tags. This really The choices and all that don't matter. I just want to get to where we ask the next question. I'll say I'll renew my license. And I'm going to use last year's results for the sake of, or last year's choices just for the sake of time. But if I click checkout, this is my second question, which will pertain to my draw results this year. If I also applied in the second draw, the answer to this question stands. We're going to assume that your preference will carry for the whole year. So if he had done Turkey, we'd ask him at Turkey, and his answer would stand for the year. But we will ask every year in case your preference does change. And again, just for the sake of a demonstration, I'll keep my results private, and then I can continue checking out and interact with the system as normal. If I apply for another hunt, it will not ask me again. We're just going to ask the one time. So it's kind of all results are included in that preference. With that, I'll turn it over for questions. Again, this is a demonstration of the functionality that we can ask these questions at different points, and we can split between results that are requested by the department, where somebody comes in from the outside and says, I want data, versus something the department does without asking, which is post those results on our website in a public setting. So we wanted to have those two avenues have two separate opt-out abilities for the customer.
I have two questions.
Yes.
So on the first box, where you logged into the system, the first box comes up before you interact. It says, how do you want your information, right? Can we add in that box that you may change these settings, or you may change your preferences at any time by going to your account profile and settings? Like put that at, somewhere in that box, that dialog box.
Yeah, Chet Van Dellen for the record. We can change the language of that. Keep in mind we're going live Monday. The functionality of the questions is programmed, and changing it by Monday would be difficult. But we can change the language of the questions at any time, and we want to finalize that as soon as possible. I can make that say and include your ability. My only caveat here is we don't want it to be too long.
No, I totally understand. Yeah. I just think you can say you may change your preferences at any time under your account settings or whatever. I mean, we're used to all seeing that nowadays. Every app and everything, go to your settings.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, if I might, so just this sample slide that's in your packet, we could easily put in parentheses, these settings can be changed under your profile at any time. Okay. Put that in parentheses underneath it. We could add that.
Jack Robb for the record. It can be changed at any time, but I want to put out there that if we post the results and 2 days later you choose to change your mind, that information is out there. There's no pulling it back. You can change your mind at any time, but once that action has been taken, those results will be out there. We are not going to let a lot of people change their mind after results have been posted and they start getting harassed. You're either in or out at the point that the draw is done.
No, I understand that.
Okay.
I just think people should be notified how you can change your preferences and settings. And then the second one, when the box comes up on the draw results, I think people should be informed that this applies to all draw results for that year. Because you're only going to be asked it once. So, I don't know if people are going to want one tag public and one tag not. I don't think so, but people should be informed. This will apply to all draw results in that box. Just some minor comments, suggestions.
If we could, Chet Van Dellen for the record, if we could agree on some language that everyone feels confident on, we can implement this almost immediately following the meeting and be ready to go for Monday, which is kind of why I sat here so I can edit this as you decree.
Could you go back to that the test site with the risk of going live again?
What would you like to see?
Start from the beginning. Let's bring up the boxes. Actually, the users are gonna see.
Be nice to see where Aaron's going to make his donation to the department too.
Oh, invalid email
Oh.
password.
It's not NDOW. It's Yahoo. Okay, so since I answered that question already, see if I can. There we go.
Well, wait. Let me just go. I know it's the samples in the. It's in the backup. It's in the support material.
Yeah, and then this is the same language here on the slide as well. And this question will display, let's say you're interacting with your phone or at an agent on the back screen, so there is some limited spacing. We can make it as long as we want, but for clarity and display purposes, conciseness would be preferred.
It seems like what you typed in while we were talking makes sense to me.
I would just say this setting may be changed under your account settings.
Okay.
Keep it even briefer. Yeah.
Okay.
And then let's go to the big game draw dialogue. Did you have a comment?
I was going to make a suggestion on when you come out of when you apply for the big game draw, that we change the wording to something that, if successful, would you share your information with guides and outfitters?
Chet Van Down for the record. So the department, our approach this year would be to post one list of all results. So it would be successful and unsuccessful in the same list. That was one comment we got from last year, was we only posted the successful list last year. So we want to commit to posting the full list.
So Chet, did you already change this?
I did.
Okay. To manage all of your draw results this year. That's fast. It's impressive.
Monday is now, in my mind.
All right. Any comments? Questions? Thank you, Mr. Van Doan. I think this is a good way to address the issue that's arisen and to a better implementation of giving people the opportunity to let things keep confidential if they so desire and have a better understanding what's going on. Miss O'Brien, how long? We're to be out of here at 12:45.
Oh.
I don't want to rush you though.
A
if you-
minute? No, it'll
Okay.
be fast. I'm always fast.
All right, so let's, we closed agenda item number 7C. We'll move on to agenda item 7D, Wildlife Trust Fund Semi-Annual Report. Deputy Director Liz O'Brien, a report will be provided on the investment and expenditure of the money in the Wildlife Trust Fund for the period of July 1st, 2018 to December 31st, 2018 pursuant to NRS 5013585. Ms. O'Brien?
Thank you, Chairman Johnston and members of the Commission. Liz O'Brien for the record. A report of the status of the Wildlife Trust Fund is in your packets, and we're required to submit semi-annually to the Commission a report on the money in the Wildlife Trust Fund pursuant to Commission Policy Number 1. Last session, we removed the requirement in statute that's listed in our agenda, so we'll be changing that. This report is for the 6 months period of July 1, 2018 through December 31 of 2018. The department received $583,155.16 in donations, which are the bulk of which were for the game and the habitat divisions. We expended $327,861.12, and I do have 2 corrections to the report. One of which is, as Director Wasley reported, is a refund that will be given under the law enforcement category. And the other correction to the report is a donation that was made by the Wild Sheep Foundation for $25,000. That will be included in the next report that I give. And that should have been included. for the helicopter. Attached is a report of every gift that we have received during the time period, and the donations are received from a variety of conservation organizations, industries, and private citizens in support of the department. These donations save state funds, mostly sportsmen's revenue, and in many instances can be used as match for federal dollars at a rate of up to $3 for every $1 donated. I stand for questions.
Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
I realize I should have put Director Wosley on the clock, and we might have been out of here by 12:45, but I did not want to limit the department activity report. Okay, with that, I know we only have a project update and public comment, but I don't believe we can get through those in 5 minutes. So we will take an extended break to turn over the meeting room to Clark County and their Board of County Commissioners. And I'd ask everyone to be back by 2:15, and just be mindful of Deputy Director Rob's admonishment earlier this morning that a meeting may be occurring when we return. So let's be respectful to our hosts here in Clark County so we don't interrupt their meeting if it happens to be continuing at that point in time. So thank you all. See you at 2:15 or later.